Hello everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to a slightly delayed, but still live Thursday edition of my bi-weekly behind-the-scenes DM only live stream crafting Icewind Down, which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of A Rime of the Frostmaiden. You're playing characters Volrovin, Frey, Celeste, Edmund, or Thimbleweed. This is not the right stream for you, but for the rest of you, welcome. Of course, there will be some spoilers. We stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday. Watch all of our D&D sessions and reviews here on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Rogue Watson and join our official Discord server with invite link in the description below. If you would like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net, and for streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. We have had some pretty gnarly winter storm ice weather here in North Texas, and long story short, it has caused me to slightly reconfigure my streaming schedule for today. The oldest has been literally out of school for the last 3 days, so you know. But hopefully she'll go back tomorrow. We were able to get out and go to the grocery store today at least, so that's good. And let me tell you, it only takes like half an inch of ice to like completely shut down everything in Texas. And we haven't even really gotten snow. It's just been ice, and it's like super dangerous. And it's just rains, and then it freezes overnight, and then it's just shitty in the morning. So, but thankfully a little bit better today, and hopefully we'll have school and stuff tomorrow. Of course, in Icewind Dale, it is always gold. And we are talking about Ithrin, Chapter 7, The Doom of Ithrin. And specifically the first couple areas in here, because that's probably where the players are going to end up. Hello, CJ, Nate, Leakies. Did you make it through Icemageddon? Yeah, I think so. Currently have survived this long, at least. I think we had enough food on hand for a while. My wife smartly got out of the house on Monday right before it came to get us a couple more things from the grocery store so we could last. That was the big issue. All right, so Ithrin, so we're going to start this session. This actually, I could put this on the token layer. The players can see that. To Caves of Hunger, a little feet thing. Why not? That is correct, isn't it? With the yep. Okay. I think that's weird how the city's way smaller than I think it is. So they're gonna long rest here first. We do have a slight issue with them following the Magen. They actually kept that Magen alive and didn't really jack with it. From its position at whatever H33, I think. Which, by the way, if you read my recaps, I actually do try to annotate the rooms players are in, because I think that's kind of useful for DMs to try to get oriented in where the players are. I realize if you're a player, then the little H32 or whatever isn't going to mean anything to you, but that's kind of why I do that. Yeah, it was H33. I replaced the mummy with the Magen, which I think works pretty well. I enjoy having the Mage in there. It was a weird, like, what the hell's going on here? And they're still learning from it. And they were able to get some information from the Dryad that these are like constructs that are, created as servants and laborers and guards and everything else for this city to try to create this kind of, bougie, high class wizard city that also fell from the sky. And so you're gonna have some kind of fun things happening. Like I do love the idea of Irolithus. I've been pronouncing it Irolithus, by the way, and I think there's another R in there. And I think I did the same thing with Aviarcharis. I think I like left out an R. The whole time I've been pronouncing it. Crandall. Yeah, Irolith. I don't know how the fuck. Is there a Romanus Personae somewhere where I can not sound like a freaking idiot? The far north pronunciation guide, Lord. Yeah, Arveatris. I guess I was an Aviatris. A southern coming on. H-I. Oh god, it starts with an ear. Eriolarthus. Boy, I was way off. Samsonite. I was way off. Eriolarthus. Eriolarthus, because that's the emphasis on the syllable. Eriolarthus. I have been way wrong on that. Nobody's been correcting me either. Eriolarthus. I gotta say it a couple times. So that's the spire of fuck it, I can't do it. Eriolarthus. Okay. It's gonna start being just gibberish to me. You know what? I'm gonna actually, instead of putting the name down, copy and paste this in my notes. Maybe that'll help me. Uriolarthus. That's hard, man. That's hard. Copyright correctly. Uriolarthus. Thus. Okay. Okay. How did this campaign compare to the jungle one you ran before? Forgot the name. You forgot the name of one of the most popular campaigns that Wizards has put out that gets mentioned quite frequently in all D&D circles. I didn't mean to drag you like that, but it is Tomb of Annihilation is the name of it. Well, I'd love to ask all of you that question, I think. How do you all feel about this campaign versus our last one? I know part of that might be, you know, the characters and things that I might not have as much control over, like who the characters are playing and how beloved, you know, their things are. But in terms of the stuff that I can do, I think Tomb is still got to be a top 5 contender for, you know, their best, which honestly is not saying like it's super competitive either. I think they've had a lot of hits and a lot of misses for 5e campaigns. And frankly, I would probably put Rime of the Frostmaiden in the top 5 as well. I think Rime has a lot more story problems that does not really make sense. It's not very cohesive. That's caused to me to do a lot more work. And I think what suffered is I haven't been able to do those cool like character specific side quest arcs that I did in Tomb, because Tomb had all the story stuff pretty much already set there. Tomb had some problems too, like the pacing of the jungle crawl isn't great, and I had to stretch out their lower levels to uncomfortable lengths of time. But otherwise, and I mean, the whole Mega Dungeon's fantastic, Omu's fantastic, like a lot of it's got some really good stuff going on there. And I did kind of like take out the death timer in Tomb and all that. Rime, I think, has some great set pieces and some cool ideas, but it's taken a lot of work for me to work a story around it. However, I will say, because of that work, I think the story in this campaign is head and shoulders above the Tomb campaign, because the Tomb campaign, the story was just, hey, there's this horrible death curse happening, and we have to discover, and it's somewhere, it's coming from Cholt, and we have to figure out where it is. So it's just one big exploration thing, and you do a bunch of, you know, little adventures along the way. And then you realize, okay, it's in Omu, and you realize, okay, it's in the bottom of this big dungeon. It never really has any, like, progression based on the story. It doesn't have any really NPCs that are invested. Some villains is a big villain problem, which I tried to fix a little bit with the Stone Sisters. But whereas here I've tried to use multiple NPCs, use multiple villains. I even got to introduce, you know, the Frostmaiden as a character at one point. Like, I feel like there's been a lot more interesting story stuff that I've been able to do. Now, whether that translates to all of you watching, you know, watching this as a show, I'd be curious to know how you feel about that, and maybe if one's stronger than the other. But I've enjoyed, I think, both for different reasons, but I will admit that this one has taken a lot more work on my end to make it work, if that makes sense. Excellent question, though. Not bowling series yet, sorry, can't judge. Uriolarthus, Lich King. I was doing my crafting annihilation with you in the background when I'm taking a break. Nice. Persons from a demon's perspective, repairing, ease of use storyline. Yeah, so as I think I mentioned, I think this one has been a lot harder to prepare because the story is so disjointed and so wonky. And yet, in a way, it's also helped me as a DM. I think this one has allowed me to grow as a DM in a way that Tomb maybe didn't, narratively wise. Obviously, like running dungeons and, you know, exploration and stuff, Tomb was awesome at. But in terms of trying to run a interesting story that has multiple, like, you know, journal entry updates and multiple factions caring about it, NPCs and things, I think Rime has been a lot more satisfying to run from that point of view, and it's good to require that amount of work for me to an extent also, and just helps me grow as a DM and as somebody who's interested in writing that narrative content. So I don't have any regrets, I guess you could say, for running this one for sure, but I think I've enjoyed them both in different ways. But it would be interesting to put up like a poll, I think, for folks after this one's said and done and wrapped up, where they stand on the overall adventures that we've done. I like them both. Yep, that's the easy answer right there. So as I mentioned, we've got the Magen. They're going to long rest. They're going to level up at the start of this session. and they can't really stop the mage without it just turning into a combat encounter. And it sounded like they're going to try to do something to track him, like literally put like breadcrumbs in its pocket or something. So maybe they'll be able to follow it. And it seems like that was something they were interested in doing. And that was an interesting thing. Like you've got this NPC set on rails that would be following, a path. They want to see where that path goes. Now, as written, we actually have to go back into Caves of Hunger for that. I believe it works in the library. The library is H33. Although there's nothing about the library section that mentions this thing. Mummy dressed in tattered black robes wearing a golden face mask is trapped in the Western World. Don't free itself. The mummy was created by Netherese priest to serve as a lore keeper in Etherin. If the walls reduce to 0 hit points, the mummy is released and makes its way to area H39, which is the exit to Etherin. And from there to the library in Etherin, which is area Y9, which is right here. It ignores the characters that interfere with it. So it's set on rails to just enter into the library. Now, unfortunately, if we go to the actual library section, I believe there's no mention of this thing if it appears, or like how I deal with that. And the library, we also mentioned, is going to be tricky, although some buddy in the chat said like, well, here's ways you can do the Arcanoloth, which I respected. I'm still of two minds on how to use this. Maybe I just need to read more about Arcanoloths and see what I can do. Refus, it was Refus who mentioned, sorry, I was looking that up, some good tips on maybe how to use the Arcanoloth. In fact, I'll just read what he said. I'd be inclined to keep the Arcanoloth in, as they are incredibly intelligent and powerful casters. This is on our Discord server, by the way. You can have it work with the Valish if it learns they want to get inside the central tower, seeing as Arcanoloth is looking for something and generally like that power, or kill Valish, replacing him. Alter Self is an easy stat upgrade. I think I've made Valish pretty strong, though. Valish is like the evocation wizard or something, and he's kind of a badass with his stat block. I'd have to go back and see. I think it's this one, the Evoker Wizard, from Mordenkainen's, which is a CR9. And just as like auto attacks, he can do a +7 with 25 force damage, and he makes 3 of them. That's kind of insane. That's not even casting spells, too. It can't be counterspelled. It's just like his auto attack is this insane thing, and then his actual ability, which again is not a traditional spell, he can do this giant explosion for 98 damage, and even do it around certain kinds. And then if he actually wants to cast a spell, then he can cast like a lightning bolt, and he's got mage armor and all that good shit. So the Arcanoloth is still maybe a slight upgrade. I'll have to look at that stat block, but that's interesting. I'm using a lot of DM's Guild material for planning 2A to level 20, but using your experience in Alliance, wow, level 20. That's crazy. There is some good shit on the DM's Guild, though, for exploring, like Mesero. I think there was a really good expansion for that one that I've seen on there and hadn't explored, because I feel like there was plenty of content as written, but I can definitely see where if you wanted to run a full up to 20 campaign, and you would definitely want to get some side content. I always think that, and maybe it's just us because we spend 2 years already playing that length of content, that I don't want to go beyond that and stick with the same characters in the same area. I want to explore different things. And I know the few times I'm a player, while it's fun to progress different characters, obviously, and explore their stories, I also have like alt-itis when it comes to playing like different, I guess, older school RPGs at this point, but I enjoy playing different kinds of characters versus the same one over and over and over again. Like, as much as I love the Ack Inc. folks, I don't know how they do that, or they play literally the same character for like 15 years or something. I'm considering running a new in-person pre-published... Boy, I'm getting a lot of chat here. Maybe I need to switch my time for streaming. This one's a little more dicey for me normally because my oldest is at school, so I'd have to like immediately stop it and scramble to go get her from class. That's why I don't do it at this time normally. Considering running a new in-person pre-published game, I am considering Icewind Dale, Witchlight, or Dragonlance. I think Eric is biased against Dragonlance. Which one would recommend? I'm biased for Dragonlance. I don't know if you saw my review, or maybe that's what you meant to say. I don't know if you saw my review for it, but I gushed and gushed and gushed about how good that Dragonlance 5e campaign is. I would easily say it is one of the probably top 5. Honestly, again, that's not the most competitive ranking, but if I had to just quickly, if I had all the things in front of me and I was doing one of those little tier maker lists, I think I would probably put, I would probably put Rime of the Frostmaiden, Curse of Strahd, Tomb of Annihilation. What else would be a top 5er for me? maybe princes, just because I still love the dungeon crawls that they do, even though that story is also a little wonky. But I think Dragonlance would be in my top 5. Like, it's of the pre-published, it's so good. Now, it's not Sword Coast, it's not Forgotten Realms, so if that's a stickler, then I totally get it. But it's another. Unfortunately, they're all level 1 through 10 or level 1 through 11, like that part. So it's hard to put that against Dragonlance because it is just one of the same as all of those. But man, it's really well done. It's a little on rails for the first like third of it. I won't go into spoilers. But it also does a good job of making you care about the story, and really does a good job of feeling like it's a war-torn world, which to me is what makes Dragonlance interesting. And it's not just another fantasy adventure. Although they all have their certain things they're all about, but I like that they actually, it does feel like there's a war going on and you're doing war shit. And then you're doing cool like Indiana Jones shit at one point, which I think Indiana Jones is also technically an adventure movie that takes place during a war and has war shit going on. And I feel like that's kind of they do a lot of that similar theme in the Dragonlance one, and it has an amazing climax and just cool stuff going on by the end of it. So I can't gush enough about how good I think Dragonlance is. What's the other one you mentioned? Icewind Dale. Obviously, you can see all of my work here, and I'd recommend it. Witchlight. I think is probably mid-tier for me. I'm not a big Feywild person, although I probably could run a D&D adventure in there. Obviously, I think the way to do it would be to run it like an Alice in Wonderland or Jim Henson Labyrinth or something, where it's just this weird, wacky stuff going on, but with violence and danger, unlike whimsy necessarily. Although some stuff can be whimsical. The same designer who did the Expanded Towers of Ithrin, which I'm using here to expand out the Towers of Ithrin, also did some really good adventure content for Witchlight. Every single one of the 3 areas, he added some new little mini dungeon crawls to that. To me, is exactly puts what that entire adventure lacks, because I think D&D is best when you're dungeon crawling. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be dungeon crawling constantly, but to me, those are like everything else is the in between moments, and then the big set piece, the big things that you really want to get to and experience are the dungeon crawls. That's what this whole rule system is like designed for in a lot of ways. And unfortunately, I think Witchlight is horribly lacking in dungeon crawls. There's basically, you go around to, again, I'll try to spoil things too much in case there's players watching, but you go down to these 3 main, the Feywild area you go to is divided into like 3 sections. And each of those 3 sections only has 1 dungeon each. And it's basically like kind of the climax of each of those areas. And then when you get to after you do all 3 of them, there's 1 final dungeon. And I didn't think that final dungeon, I don't think is very well designed. And then the individual ones are okay. The story is good, but they do the hag thing again, and I feel like Wizards all just fucking defaults to hags constantly as villains. And hags are great; they're great villains, and honestly, probably classic Fey villains as well. But unfortunately, you end up using them in a lot of different things. And I used the hags a lot in Tomb of Annihilation for my campaign, so that's the only reason I would especially be turned off of that one. But to me, I think it's a solid mid-tier. I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it was very stellar. And the carnival thing in the beginning, the actual Witchlight carnival, is fine. It's just kind of a goofy stuff you do at level 1, and I don't think they particularly tie in very well to necessarily what's going on in the rest of the campaign either. Just a weird excuse of how you get transported into the Feywild. But yeah, I'm well versed in because I review all these things. Fun fact: after this stream is over, I've got scheduled, I'll go ahead and give you a tease for those of you all watching live. You will see me review the Pathfinder 2nd Edition beginner box, which is on Roll20. It's probably been on Roll20 for a while, but I'm putting my proverbial money where my mouth is, or at this point, mouth where my other mouth is, by mentioning, I do the whole OGL drama, right? And I mentioned, hey, I need to cover more things outside of 5th edition, and this is one of the steps I'm doing to do that, is to cover Pathfinder. So you will look at that video. You will look at that video after I'm done streaming here. But I will say that I was pretty positive on it. All right, so we've got the Magen heading to the library. Unfortunately, the library is not mentioned on how to use this character, and I'm tempted to actually have the Magen die on the way to the library. Do you think that would be terribly disappointing, I guess, for the player? Because what I assume is going to happen is they're going to long rest here at the entrance. They're going to level up to 13, by the way. And then they're going to follow whatever breadcrumb trail they left to follow their mage. Unless they get distracted and they're like, well, hell, there's this cool stadium. There's this cool stadium right here we can check out. There's this tower over here. There's this big glowing thing. Valen and Valish and Nass are all going to want to go over there and check out the Mythalar. So, maybe they'll be convinced to just leave it behind or track them down later or something. So I'll need to prep all of this area because I'm not sure where they're going to go, which to me is part of the fun of having the Lost City thing. It's more work for the DM, obviously, compared to a standard dungeon crawl. But I think from a player's perspective, giving them that amount of, you're loosening the leash, basically. Because on a dungeon, you've got them leashed, technically, where they're going to be in the dungeon, so I just have to prepare these rooms. Whereas here, I have to okay, shit, I got to prepare a quarter of the city. But I think it's really satisfying for the players because it feels like they are making those choices and driving the narrative along because they're deciding where to go and what all to do. You must get escape. Exactly. Dragonlance does look tasty. Such awesome lore. I can start listening to Dragonlance books on Audible thanks to your review. Oh, good. Cool. I'd be fascinated to know if they still hold up. I was such a huge fan, but that was back when I was a teenager in high school. I think I read the most of them throughout when I was in high school and college. And then a few years after college, to me, is when they dried up. There was a 10-year gap or so where they stopped doing Dragonlance. I don't know if it was a rights issue or what happened there. And I feel like I'd kind of grown out of them in a way and started exploring other things. I think I discovered, when at some point during college, I think I started reading Game of Thrones, for example. I started getting more serious, maybe fan. And I don't want to poo-poo Dragonlance too much and call it juvenile, but it's a very traditional style of fantasy, and I feel like I wonder if my tastes have changed. Although I'm running D&D right now and still running it in that style, so maybe I would still dig it quite a bit. I still have most of my books on the shelf. I didn't actually ever trade those ones in because I cherish them so much. Hey Revis, I actually mentioned and quoted you earlier in the stream with your Arcana Law stuff on the Discord, so thank you for mentioning that stuff. It's true, there's hags everywhere. They love the hags. I mean, I know Jeremy Crawford does a great hag voice too. It's inspired with the Ag Ink games. So I was gonna ask, do you think it's okay for me to kill off the Magen as it makes its way to the library versus ending up at the library, just because I don't really have anything for it to do once it reaches the library other than leading the players there. So it's a weird thing where this Magen didn't really have any purpose. You almost expected the player to fuck up its purpose by just attacking them at some point, but because they did such a good job, and now I feel like, oh, do I need to really reward them by having this thing survive all the way to the library and then have that be meaningful in some way? Maybe it opens the way to the library that would normally be closed to them or something. Or I can have them find the body somewhere, maybe to where they would know where it's headed, maybe create the encounter here or something, and then it would, so they'll be all right, it was headed towards this, and this looks like a, I don't know, describe what a Netherese library would look like, but have it be torn apart by Nothics or something might be interesting and kind of add to the danger horror element a bit. I wonder if I can pull up, actually Necropolis is probably where. I wish there were slightly more journal entries here, so I don't have to keep scrolling up and down this giant part. Because I want to look up what the counters were. Oh, there's a name. What was it? Loar. No, I can't do it. Iriolarthus. The Demi-Lich Iriolarthus. By the way, I'm not going to make him a Demi-Lich. He's going to be an Elder Brain. Elder Brain. I mean, there's brains in jars. Why would not make him an Elder Brain? And of course, we just did a freaking Lich at the end of Annihilation, so an easy fix. Tomb Tapper could be good, although there's a Tomb Tapper that I'm going to use here in the Tower of Abjuration. Again, this is from the Expanded Towers of Magic, and I've already put them on the map also. This is going to be a pretty simple smash and grab. One player may get turned into a little crystal and get thrown into the little bottom area. They have to fight a bunch of Magen. Make it down there. They have to destroy one of their own magic items, which should not be a problem. They get one of the rights of the Arcane Octad, which is the goal in each of these towers. And when they're leaving, this Tomb Tapper appears and attacks them, which I will be looking at modifying this Tomb Tapper and maybe adding some new abilities. I think I started doing that on Monday's stream. I think the Magen serve its purpose, lead them to the ceiling, something to guide the players. No, I really don't. Like, this campaign has gone on for almost 2 years. Hey, Andrew, it feels like that to me also. I've mentioned this before, but if you look back at the beginning streams I did, like the pre-campaign crafting streams, I mentioned the fact like, hey, this could probably be another 2-year long campaign given the length of it. And sure enough, it would only take another like 8 or 9 weeks for us to hit, I think 23 months, which is how long Tomb was. And I definitely suspect that this will take pretty close to that. Although another big choice we have to make, and something I was going to ask all of you, is should I do a similar thing I did for Omu, which is not me doing it. It was written in the book in Omu, in Tomb of Annihilation, which was, hey, the players, even though there's 9 shrines, the player should only do like 5 of them or something, and then let the other factions there, which was the Red Wizards, go and do the other 3 or 4 or something. And that worked out really well. And as me, the DM, I could pick and choose and be like, all right, well, these are the shittiest ones, so those are the ones the other faction's going to do. And then, like, one of them has already been done by, Rosnisi and the Fan of the Night Serpent, so that's one. So they only had to do, like, 5 of them or something. So in the Towers of Ithrin, I could do a similar thing, where maybe I only want them, they don't have to do all 8 of them. Maybe they could have some of their other NPCs with them split off, and that's a great excuse to be like, hey, here's Baelish and Nas going to do their thing, so they don't have to be with you guys again like they weren't in the cave. And maybe they can go handle some of the towers, which is tricky because I need to know that as soon as possible, so I don't have to literally prep those towers. That would be very handy for me. It also means I would have to go through, pick and choose which ones I like and don't like, and I actually do like most of them in the Expanded Towers of Magic. I like a lot of that content, so that would be tricky for me as the DM to even make that choice. And unfortunately, it would be less. In Omu, it was the case of like, hey, some of like the people come on and say, we already did these, or we're planning on doing these, you go do these. Whereas in this case, it would be more of the players having the agency of deciding, well, I guess we can do this one, and you guys do that one. So there's no way for me, the DM, necessarily convey to the players which ones that they should do versus not do. Like, it would be heartbreaking to me if they don't do Necromancy. Evocation, I think, is really fun and interesting. Abjuration, honestly, is probably one of the lesser interesting ones, and yet because it's one of the first towers, I feel like they would do it. Divination, I think, is pretty interesting. Like, the ones I would probably want them to skip maybe would be like Enchantment and Transmutation. Oh, Illusion. God, please don't let them skip Illusion. Illusion's incredible. It's just one big RP scene that sounds absolutely fabulous. Yeah, so I'm kind of answering that question, Refus. The question of some of the towers a bit rubbish. They don't trust the NPCs. That's a good point. They probably do not to go do that. So that would be something that maybe that's a way I can suggest, like, hey, we'll go do that. And they'll be like, fuck, no, you're not. You're not going to do that. Now, the interesting thing is, similar to Omu, however, you have to have all of the rights together to get into the area. So it doesn't do either party either good to withhold that information because they all want to get into the same thing. So even if you don't trust them, you still, like, it's a back and forth deal, right? Like, they still have to combine the information that they learn in order to make it into that final area. So it's a weird, like, yeah, we don't trust them, but maybe you could go do some of that work for us. But I think I wouldn't necessarily force that on the players. I think I would let them decide that versus me, or I could have the NPCs suggest that as well and be like, hey, we can cover more ground if we cover some of these towers. And then maybe if they ask them like, hey, which towers do you do, then I as the DM can be like, all right, maybe they'll just randomly say, how about we handle the Tower Transmutation or something. So I think that one's the weakest one. Enchantment is probably next. Enchantment has a cool Ublex thing, but I just don't know how well I might have to scale that one up for the level that they're at is the only issue. But I think all the others are pretty damn cool. The worst ones off the NPCs, yeah. But I would just say, unlike the Omu shrines, I actually like most of the content that is here. So if we want the Magen to get killed, what could have killed the Magen? And another thing I'm doing in my campaign is I'm fluctuating with having these far realm incursions, basically, as the Mythalar is damaged. If I can actually look this up. Is it far realm? It's from Tasha's Supernatural Regions, Far Realm. Let's see. Yeah, Far Realm effects. So I'm going to use kind of this table, maybe combined with this table and then some of my own stuff to try to create like random events and encounters that are going to happen throughout Etherin as they're walking around. Obviously, don't want to be slowing the action down too much, but as it is, I think it's a little undertuned here, especially because one of them is, I mean, Frost Giant Skeleton with Winter Wolves is interesting, but it says that only makes sense if Oral's in Etherin, which that does make sense. And then the Cultists, the Shardolin Berserkers is probably what I would use if Avarice is in Etherin, which I do want her to show up, but she wouldn't show up until later on, once the players start either at some point when they swing back around towards the entrance, basically, is probably when she'll show up with her forces, or have been there a bit. Tomb Tapper's great, but I don't know how often I want to, overuse those. Cold Light Walkers are great, but should only make sense if they're in Etherin. I guess, could I have just Cold Light Walkers here in general? They're pretty cool. We haven't got to use them too much. I might keep that one on the table, actually. Especially as, like, people walking around that just fire this freaking light out. Pretty decently strong, too. For you could do a couple CR5s. I mean, they got 80 hit points, and if I start them at range, they can just start doing that range attack like crazy. That might not be a bad choice. But I also need to look up what are some good, like, alien-ass aberrations to use as well. Thinking maybe like Star Spawn type things. By that. I'm going to take it a hot minute to filter through the ridiculous amount of monsters that exist now. Obviously, Magein as an encounter is good, but it wouldn't make sense for this purpose. And I'd probably be doing it as like malfunctioning, I like the AI or like the androids, like in the first Alien movie. Have like malfunctioning androids. Okay, I don't. Or is no, that one's not filtered yet. That filter. Apply. There we go. I think that one's better. Honestly, some of the creatures I used for the Dazan clones would probably work pretty well too. They had some good ones. Find his corpse puddle as he's grinding himself against the force field. Random pseudopod comes to a tear in the fabric reality and splat goes the Magein. Yeah. I do plan on doing the big tentacle stuff. I'm probably going to use the Cosmic Horror stat block to actually do that. The Astral Devourer. How do you look at this one? Oh, there we go. That's gross looking. Just a bunch of worms with teeth. What is it about tentacles? We just have like a real problem with tentacles. As like a species. We look at tentacles, we're like, oh, that's fucking crazy. I find a swarm. CR8. Oh, this is kind of a cool creature. Can split into two new. How big is this thing? Oh, it's only medium. Okay. I'm gonna have to keep that on the back burner. Divide and recombine. From Tomb of Beasts 2. Snapper. That's weird looking. It's a dude with like sharp teeth. Valanoth. There we go. That's a good looking one. That looks pretty horrifying. Shadowfell creature. I think it matters. I think we could still use it. What are we talking here? CR11. Got a tentacle attack. One thing you could do too is combine these with just a normal fight and just have it be like, they're fighting a battle and then a tear opens up and like the Hunger of Hadar, essentially is cast right there. In fact, that's not a bad thing to put in a farm incursion. Is Hunger of Hadar the one I'm thinking of that has the inky realm of tentacles? Such a cool spell. Burbalang. Real Cthulhu ass stuff. Real Cthulhu stuff. On off this grab and teleport. Oh, ooh, that thing's gross. You can teleport? Oh yeah, legendary action. Magically teleports. The 60 feet occupied space I can see. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, so it could grab somebody. Or makes up to 4 tentacle attacks. That's nice. That action economy back. Hairless cat? That is not a hairless cat. Looking like Drake. What are you talking about? Large CR10 with Mind Ravage. This is the Catanoctrix. This looks like a creature you would find in one of the Metroid games. Like an alien dragon looking thing. Well, I could go real fun with this. Crazy creatures. Nothics are still going to be like the basic of what they were transformed into, so I could use Nothics. Unfortunately, we just had a Nothic fight. So I don't know if I want to have that be like the first one. Choker was pretty cool looking as I recall. Yeah, that looks like an alien creature. Look at that. He's got tentacle arms and legs, long alien head, and just serrated predator teeth. Yet it's a CR1, so give me this, but like, yeah, way stronger. It looks cool though. Yeah, I could take that and just upscale a little bit. Or I guess you could make a horde of them. That's an idea. Jewel Juggernaut. I bet you could reflavor that as a creepy mon. Okay, here we go. Core Spawn. I think I was going to think about Star Spawn. These that are actually supposed to be kind of alien-esque. Oh, hell yeah. Look at that Jewel Juggernaut. What is this from? Manual Expanded? Oh, okay. Been a while since I looked at that book. That one just had, I think, variants of the existing monsters. God, all those Monster Manual Expanded books are fantastic. Telekinetic Pull. Tentacle. Yeah, this is great. CR10, too. Nice. It is high CR, yeah. But you know what? They're level 13, so... Quadruped is literally tentacles. Is that just all? It's from the Ag Inc. Adventure. It's awesome. Cluster of 4 sucker tentacles of pulsing mass of ethereal light as a central body. Creature of the far realm. Yep. Pretty much exactly what I'm going for. Just tentacles. CR4. Yeah. Just tentacles everywhere. Okay, that's a cool one too. We've got a lot of cool ideas. I don't want to go too. These are a lot of these supposed to be like kind of random encounter-esque. You don't want to go too overboard with like these just random giant boss fights necessarily. And maybe it'd be a cool thing if I don't know, some like the players could just see some of these happening and not necessarily have it happen like right in front of them. They have to fight it, but like maybe they'll see, like in the Mist. Where they do end up fighting a lot of the stuff, but others are just creepy things that they see. They're like, oh shit, this is getting real dangerous. Especially at the very end of the Mist, where they're like giant, like brontosaurus ones just walking by, and they're like, well, I guess we gotta kill ourselves. It was so fucked up. I love it. Yeah, so Elderbrain is what we're gonna do for our maybe final boss, although I'll probably have the Elderbrain just be the thing guarding the Mythalar, so they have to take this out, with a bunch of other minions and things. But then the final showdown will probably be some combination of all the different villains they've got, and like the Frostmaiden there, and it'll be hopefully a big, culmination of a lot of the choices and friends and enemies they've made along the way. And possibly I want there to be a really cool, tough choice where like somebody has to choose to like attune to it in order to stop it from exploding, and like that's going to be maybe a series of checks. to where it either kills you or maybe you could ascend to godhood or something insane could happen. But I am willing to let that happen for sure. Only reached the I's and F's. There's so many good ones. I've barely gone through this list and I found some really good options. Flying Horror is pretty creepy. That's from Ravnica. That looks undead. It's an aberration. Okay. DR3, that's a little bit more beta. Something they can use in mass versus giant and boss things. There was, what was it called? The ones that have like the in front of them, where there were some really creepy looking ones for that. Like there was like the Hunger, and are those all aberration? Gibbering Mouther obviously would be a good one. You just have the, have them spilling out of the ground. Gibbering Horror, is that also from Monster Manual Expanded 1. Hello. This must have recently gotten added to Roll20. I don't remember seeing these usually. Larger and deadlier type of Gibbering Mouther. It's exactly what I like. You are sick. Yeah, that's fantastic. Keeping all these tabs open like I'm scrolling through my browser. Star Spawn of Cthulhu is like CR15. That's probably overboard. Aeorian monster from the Wild Mount manual feels like Nether's experiment. I think I do have Wild Mount in here. If it's aberration, it should show up. Unless did I just miss it? Under Aeor, I don't see that one on here. Aboleth to Ahu to Alexian to Arboreal. Sandbosom. So many good choices. That said Greater Luchador. Right. Grell is a pretty classic one to do, but I think Grell's actually appear quite often in the Sword Coast in general, so maybe that one's less thrilling. Just scrolling through, looking at some options. Oh yeah, I kind of missed there was a core spawns I missed up there. Light Devourer. Boy, I really have to look at these Monster Manual Expanded ones. Those are kind of new for me. Can use Mind Flayers. Mind Witness is good, but we kind of used Mind Witness already in this campaign. Mordant Snare. That's all from Spelljammer. Sorrow Spawn Monstrosity. The Aeorian. Ah, okay. So it's got the in front of them. Ooh, look at that. You want to talk about Cthulhu. That looks 100%. Big is this thing? A CR15. Okay, maybe I'm going overboard here. But what you can do is you can look at some of those abilities, not put the creature on the map, but literally use, maybe some of its things. Like this thing grabs people with its tentacles and turns them into zombies somehow. Like maybe you could do creepy things with that. So like have them appear out of the portal, but don't necessarily use the full, creature. Maybe have it half stuck into the portal, so it's trying to claw its way through. It'd be pretty creepy. I don't think I can use that full stat block though. Oh yeah, this is where that. Which I think the expanded towers already came. Yeah, because I already used some of those new Nothics. Only in the P's. Spelljammer does have some good ones. The Surlons are really creepy, like worm dudes. That one's good. Mind Blight. It's kind of similar to the one I used. Oh, I got addicted to looking at creatures now. Entering horror. Jesus. There's some real nightmare shit in here. Yeah, they're all big boys though. 15. Maybe not so much with 1-2 reward with that. Power Spawn Mangler, that's a good looking one. It doesn't show the image on there. Starspawn Hulk's a CR10. Is the Mangler a little better? Yeah, CR5. That's a good one. Got a bunch of claws. Okay. I think we've got some really good options to use. Whoa, Strider. Was that the one I was thinking of? Also, I'm not seeing the these anywhere. I passed the these. Look at this thing. This thing is so fucking creepy. Just like super long limbs and like no face. That is crazy. Cosmic blasphemers. Punched long-limbed horrors. That's what I'm picturing, like walking around all creepily. It's got the fucking beholder anti-magic cone. That is jacked up. Much cooler than their little table they've got here, which involves gargoyles, which just seems so not fun to fight against at level 13. The Magein will be fun when I get a good group together, but I don't want to use that as my first group that's going to maybe ripped apart our Magein friend. No, I'm not going to have the boss wandering around with a bunch of Nothics. Spinning Mimics are good. We just had a Spinning Mimic fight also, unfortunately, so I'm leaning towards using, like, what killed the Magein. Probably either Cold Light Walkers or just one of these various creepy Far Realm creatures that came through one of the portals. Players track the Magein, finding it just as a Terran reality. Well, the problem, Refus, and I like that, but the timing, if they long rest, that's literally 8 hours, and the Magein doesn't stop. So the problem is there's no way for them to catch. If I want the Magein to have not reached its destination, all that had to have happened in the past, because this thing, it's not making great time necessarily, but this area is not very big, and it's literally not stopping. It doesn't tire, it doesn't rest, it's Terminator. So if they find it after the fact, it has to have been after something had happened, something had torn it away. I can turn it into a cool horror moment where like they track it down and it's like, yeah, it's been like ripped in half, and no, because unfortunately the bodies disappear, don't they? That's kind of a bummer. I guess I could change that. I think it literally says the bodies. The Magein dies, its body disintegrates in a harmless burst of fire and smoke, leaving behind anything it was wearing or carrying. So I guess it's literally like a Jedi, or literally the body just disappears and it's just the clothes left behind. So I wouldn't be able to necessarily do a really body horror thing, but they could at least find the robes torn apart. And yeah, maybe I can use. I could probably go with a cool horror angle on that. We'll use one of the horror things. That would be probably a good effect for that. Put the lower down. So many tabs. Look at all of these and determine ones will be most fun. But also picking and choosing and making sure I don't like clog things down too much, because you could really slow down the whole pacing by throwing too many of these encounters at them. It's a tough balance between wanting this area to be very not just sitting, waiting for the players to interact with it, but actually having things going wrong. Because the big thing I want to create is that this is it's a nuclear facility, and it's like alarms blaring, ready to explode, basically. And that's the instead of radioactivity going up or something like that, it's these Far Realm incursions being created everywhere as a result of the Mythalar kind of being in a malfunctioning but still powerful state. So we'll put together an encounter for that. That's going to be here at the street level. I think I can use this map a couple ways. This was a map I got from this folder where I got this map. This is from a Google Drive folder. I think this isn't from this one. Okay. Where did I get this map? Maybe I mentioned it last time. I have to go back through my own notes. Fantastic map, either way. Maybe somebody on the Discord gave it to me. God, I need to remember these things. But I've already put that one together. I've got the lighting together. I've got the dynamic lighting. It's all been stuck in there, so we can try to use different parts of this map to dictate when they're running around and triggering some of these interesting encounters with the far realm incursions happening. And you could even do a thing where like it starts out like a Nothic fight, like a bunch of Nothics around a corner, and you roll initiative, and then literally maybe, you know, round 1 they think they're fighting Nothics, and then round 2 I suddenly have a portal open up like right next to them, and you know, something fucking creepy as shit comes out. Like this thing, you know, the Troll Juggernaut like emerges and just rips apart one of the Nothics, and then that becomes another fight for them or something insane. I think that would be pretty awesome, if I do say so myself. So they might make it to the library if they do a beeline there. The nice thing is if they follow the Magen, I'll have the Magen tracks also lead them to Y6, which is importantly the entrance to the spire. And now I've got too many tabs open. Where is it? Arcane Blight, try the Arcane Octad. This one also only has exploration, being that you get basically lore or jewelry or art objects or a drift globe or common magic item. I could create some slightly better table for that, but that's if you spend 30 minutes searching around. But also that should probably trigger one of the random things if you end up searching in that area. So that was Y6. And what I'm going to do here is make sure it's pretty obvious where you need to complete the Rite of the Arcane Octad. So have those symbols there, and then maybe have a magic mouth appear in Loros that actually gives the instructions. You know, only those who have received permission from each of the high wizards at the towers and learned the Rite of the Arcane Octad have permission to enter the, what it's called, Central Spire again. It is really called the Spire of what was it? Eerie Lorothus? Billy's Heels entire thing. It's called Spire of Eurolothus. Okay. And then it was 23 just the Mythalar? Yeah, it's the Mythalar. Okay. Maybe we'll just call it Central Spire. I don't know if it's interesting to name it after the dude. But I'll make it pretty obvious. So early on, they should hopefully know what they have to do here. Is going to all these different towers. I'm never going to get it. It's not going to happen. Monstrosity, not Aberration. Oh, okay. I'll have to check that one out. Monstrosities could work too. I was just using Abjurations. Oh, this would be a good one too. One's from Eberron. Aberrations just seem to be kind of the more alien ass looking guys. That thing is definitely built for this. CR7. Yeah, that could be fantastic. It possesses people. Great. The players would totally appreciate that because I haven't been doing that enough times. Maybe not so much then. Although popping out and doing a fear spell. Did I use this for the Wendigo stat block? Jesus, it can possess people and cast fear once per day. Man. And it can frighten as part of its attacks, and it can grapple as part of its attacks. That's fabulous. Sukora Quarry. Fearmonger and a relentless schemer. Yeah, I'll save you as a tab. So many good options. Teleported. I also derobe when pimping. Yeah, that's a good reference. I think Farum is too much, I guess. I mean, I'm almost tempted to just, because they do tease that these things were afraid of Farums or fought them. So I'm tempted to make one of these creatures just kind of canonically a Farum, basically. I have to look back and see what the description was that they described for Farums, but maybe I can come up with, it was some kind of tentacled thing, I think, that lived technically in the Underdark, the Netherese, but maybe, you know, it's the things that they had fought, and maybe these portals are bringing them into Ithrin for, that's maybe the Mythalar is like drawing to them, or vice versa, or whatever's happening. So I can maybe make one of those. So maybe in the museum they find like the, remains of one of these kinds of creatures in there, and they're like, oh shit, that's the thing that's been that they've had a history with. That might be slightly interesting. So we've got the spire. We're gonna have an encounter here that's gonna be kind of a horror encounter. We've got the Tower of Abjuration. I think pretty much locked up. The whole Mythalar thing, they cannot get through. It even says that the portal like extends into the ethereal realm. They can't get through it. They can't dispel it. It's just DM, locked down completely. The only thing they can do is go around to these towers, which I believe are these ones that separate it. Y4, or surround it. Y4, Y26, Y22, Y20, Y7. I think one of them is destroyed here, but I believe is not destroyed. Is that Y18 over there? I shouldn't have to make a different map art for it then. Yeah, the Tower of Necromancy. So as written, it's just literally destroying. There's a bunch of crawling claws rolling around. And you just dig through the remains of it. I don't actually, I wonder if I should change where the tower is. Or if that is the case for the Tower of Necromancy. I forgot about that one. It's clearly destroyed looking on the map. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where are the other ones? 8 of them. Oh, 11, I bet, is one of them. The one up here. They're not exactly surrounding it. And then, what's the other one? One is Evocation. 22 is Illusion. 24. The one we're missing. Where is 24? Keeper Sutherland, where are you? Why? How far down does it go? Oh, wow, it does go all the way down there. Okay, 24 is way out there. Tower of Enchantment. Yeah, that'd be an easy one for one of the NPCs to take care of because it's so far out there. And that's one I wouldn't mind them to take care of also. So if they could be sent down this way. The bummer is I do love 22. I would hate to lose that one because it's one big RP scenario and it's freaking awesome. But we'll see. Maybe I can't convince the players to split up, and maybe I don't want to. Maybe I'm just like, hey, fuck it, you guys can do all the things, and I'll let them split up and try to handle. Or just say like, hey, we'll go down and take care of this one tower, which is this one down at 24, and the rest of you can go do all that, and then maybe they'll meet up at some point during another tower and figure it out from there. But I'm assuming I'm only gonna have to prep this intro area, and that's where they're gonna get to for the purpose of this session. But it is kind of nerve-wracking because I'm not sure exactly where they're going to go or what they're going to do. Are they going to check out the stadium? In which case, I've got the stadium set up. I'll need to do a few more prep for that because I think I might be able to come up with hopefully more interesting rules when we spawn the opposing Magian to do this little match right here. I'm also not sure whether to put them on the map for this purpose or because I feel like they would be thinking combat maybe and maybe moving around, and I don't necessarily need to make it that tactical. Or maybe it'd be more interesting if you put everybody in combat and have them roll or do actions on their turn and really turn this into a cool sporting match. I mean, I guess if I really expanded it, you can almost turn this into a full session. And it's not just technically a side thing, by the way, because the Expanded Towers of Aetherine, it makes it a main quest thing. In order to complete the Towers of Evocation and get the line that they need, the Rite of the Arcane Octad, they need to get the trophy from here, and then only with that trophy can they pass through the display cases in the Tower of Evocation, and then they can get the information they need once they've entered that area. So basically the trophy becomes the key, and you only earn the trophy here if you actually win this game. Or I would, as a failing forward thing, and I believe it does mention this in Expanded Towers as well, if they fail at getting the trophy, then the Magian do not take it, because in the book says if you fail, then they take the trophy and disappear. So you've just lost this kind of art object. Although I believe it comes with a Stone of Good Luck if you actually win the game. But at this point, actually might need to up that treasure. I don't know. I don't know if they keep the treasure afterwards or not. The Stone of Good Luck isn't that great. I guess you have to make it a +2. I think it's a +1. But obviously they won't grab it and disappear. They would just stay there and surround it and take it, and then you could turn it into an easy combat fight and just have it. Hey, now you have to fight all these mages in order to get it, which would not be that hard. I mean, these are a bunch of CR3s. They can cast lightning bolts, I guess, kind of low-powered lightning bolts, which is pretty nice. But otherwise, they don't have a whole lot of defenses. Although I could have the defenses here like end up attacking them in some ways. But maybe that's more interesting if I have everybody roll for initiative and then do different things on your turn. I think it's basically, as written, it's just a game of dodgeball, which I don't know how much fun that is to actually play out. You're just making athletics checks and throwing the balls around. Maybe I could come up with something where different players can do different things. I'm trying to think about how like an actual sport works. Like some people have to play, defense or offense, or you protect the person with the ball. Like you could be an offensive lineman or a receiver or something. Really make everybody play some football here. That could be really fun, I think. Something different too, just a memorable sporting match. Other than a bunch of skill checks, which is otherwise what it breaks down into. It does. I believe there's a sidebar for this too. Or not. Is it here? Oh, it's here. Chain Lightning. 2 teams of 6 players compete against each other. I could make it just 5-on-5. That'd probably be the easiest thing. Unless Valen's with them, then I could make it 6. A team must eliminate each other's players by hitting them with a 3-inch diameter iron ball. That's a small 3-inch diameter? That's a baseball, isn't it? Jeez. Player struck by the thrown ball is eliminated and teleported to the sidelines. The game ends when all of one team's players have been eliminated. The game begins, an iron ball magically appears in a random location on the arena floor, roughly equidistant from the 2 teams. The ball is a simple ranged weapon with the finesse and thrown properties. Its range is 120 feet and it deals 1d floor bludgeoning damage on a hit. Step 1. Each player makes an athletics check. The individual with the highest roll gets the ball, and that person's team is on offense. Resolve a tie with an athletics contest. Simulate the ball being passed around. Every player makes a DC 15 athletics check. If the team on offense gets more successes than the team on defense, one player on offense can try to either hurl the ball between the metal tines and electrified mast, hoping to impart an electrical charge to the ball, or make a ranged weapon attack with the ball against a player on defense. The weird thing is, though, if you read the rules, you might as well always just hurl it at an enemy, because if you hurl it through the electrified things, it could be the enemy team's ball, and they could now get an electrified ball. Hurling the ball between the tines and electrified mast requires a successful ranged attack roll against AC 15. If the attack hits, the ball becomes electrically charged as it passes between the tines, but then you have to repeat step 1 to determine which team gets custody of the ball, so you don't necessarily get it back. It's just up to that athletics check. Which, do these things have any kind of athletics? Okay, that feels like a huge oversight on the game's point of view, then, if the AI has literally a +0 to its athletics. Isn't athletics strength? So I feel like I need to change the stats on these things to make it more interesting, because a +0, like, most players are going to be able to beat that, and the ones that are trained in athletics are definitely going to beat that. I do want some challenge there. The ball is thrown to play on defense, and it hits. The player struck by the ball is eliminated. The ball is electrically charged when it hits. It deals an additional 1d6 lightning damage to the eliminated player. Arc of lightning shoots the ball and makes another randomly determined player on the same team. There's a chance of eliminating more than one player. And then they only have an AC of 14 in terms of hitting them also. So I also might just have to scale up these participants. So I don't know how interesting it is. It's basically just dodgeball where you make constantly athletics or ranged attacks. Yeah. So hopefully we can come up with something that's a little more interesting, and then the players will be more engaged with that, and then maybe we can actually use this map and have the players be on here rolling initiative and have an actual sports match versus a bunch of skill checks back and forth. I think that could be cool. And again, it's not It's interesting because they think it's going to be a side quest thing, and then they'll get this treasure, which is a pretty good piece of treasure. I just freaking closed the window. But it's actually worth like almost 2,000 gold or something ridiculous. Treasure can't be removed from its pedestal. The trophy cup is made from mithril embedded with 3 blue gemstones and is worth 1,800 gold pieces. And while carried by a member of the winning team, it functions as a stone of good luck. It doesn't say if it requires attunement, but I guess it does. Ability checks and saving throws. I would maybe increase that to a +2. Just because the players have good shit. They're level 13 now, and I don't think they have to actually give it up in order to gain the thing they need from the Tower of Evocation. I have to check that. So that we'll need to prep. We'll need to prep the encounter that rips apart the Magian, because I'm liking that idea. Got the Tower of Abjuration pretty much prepped. And then the Mythalar thing will just be a scene, essentially. I guess just in case I'll have to look at the freaking museum and then this Reunion Arena Tower. In case they end up going in that direction. Which the museum I think is empty, but a bunch of Nothics in there. So you could turn that into a little mini dungeon fight thing. God, there's a lot of work to do here for Aetherin. It's a lot. I still have a lot of work to do, but it's already been an hour, so I think that's going to do it for this Thursday edition of Crafting Icewind Dale. If you enjoyed the content, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, William, Brandon, Genocider, David, Eclectic Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Brian, William, David, Corey, Koa, 1337, Matthew, Big Nut, John, Infernus, Chris, Scott, and Gene. In gold patrons, RPG, Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Marcus, Dead Lizard, Lion, Sam, Lumpy Spuds, Jerome, Nathan, Fast Tortoise, Scott, Refus, Carolyn, and William. Thank you all very much for your support. I will see you for D&D tomorrow night.